On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. This is episode 29, created on November 14th, 2022. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minneapolis, and Neil on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen. Tonight I'm having a Left Hand Brewing Wake Up Dead Imperial Stout. And I woke up happy and not dead.
I woke up happy, and it's not just because I'm drinking Guinness right now. A Packers victory Monday after what had been a dreadful streak. Cheers to all of that.
And a good victory for me means a whiskey old fashioned with a little bit of sour in it. You can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat, and Facebook at the GBC Podcast, Green Bay Chat. And now just the audio is available on Spotify and Anchor by searching for Green Bay Chat. Well, we need to talk about that Week 10 victory. We're going to review our season picks at the halfway point of the season here. We've got our Packer player of the past, and of course, we're going to talk about the Tennessee Titans here on the short week. We'll get to our history report, give you some update on our tailgating and social media that we do along with the podcast. But that victory last night, gentlemen, was a good one.
Yeehaw! How about them Cowboys? Oh, it's just beautiful always to beat Dallas. It's beautiful to beat Mike McCarthy, but especially in the context of what we had this year. When we talked about this game last week, we said one of the keys to victory was Mike McCarthy coaching like playoff Mike McCarthy. Mission accomplished.
Check.
Just beautiful. On top of that, we obviously had a great running game. Our passing game came together. We found a new potential star. Our special teams, we're not going to talk about the asshats in a positive sense, but nonetheless, we got the victory. We did the things that we needed to do. Special teams, I guess Mason Crosby's field goal to win the game is a pretty huge plus as far as the special teams are concerned.
The comment that I saw on Twitter was that for the first time in many years, the Packers had a victory as a result of Mike McCarthy's coaching. So what happened down the stretch there? Because it was even at halftime, 14-14. The third quarter, we couldn't do anything right.
Awful.
And then in the fourth quarter, we just couldn't do anything wrong.
So we basically got 3 good quarters of football yesterday. We haven't gotten 4.
We're almost four.
I know we're getting there. Progress. Beggars can't be choosers here. So at halftime, I texted out to you guys. I'm like, well, we got 2 pretty good quarters, offense and defense, and then that jinxed the shit out of it. And so, yeah, the third quarter was awful. And then I don't know what happened. A little Lambeau magic, divine intervention. Something good happened because things changed.
Absolutely. I mean, you just go from the start of the game. So Jeff and I were sort of FaceTiming the game on DirecTV because
of overtime.
The stupid Bills-Vikings game was on instead. But the Packers started out and they forced a 3-and-out of the Cowboys on their first drive. The Packers get the ball and they move the ball all the way down to Dallas's 36. Unfortunately, Mason Crosby missed the field goal. Dallas gets the ball back and they had another 3-and-out. The Packers get the ball back and they drive all the way down to Dallas's 43. Those first 4 drives of the game were just about what we wanted, other than that final conversion as far as the scoring is concerned. And then the situation completely changed. After the Packers punted from the Dallas 43, they took the 5-yard delay of game, but whatever. Dallas went down and scored a touchdown. So Dallas takes the lead at 7-0. And then Aaron Rodgers fumbles at our 10-yard line. Now, it's a nice change of pace compared to the week before where Aaron's fumbling on the opponent's 10-yard line or throwing the ball away at the opponent's 10. But this was absolutely a disaster. And Aaron Rodgers fumbles, and it's just like, oh, shit, this is going to go really bad really quickly. This was like preying on every fear that every Packers fan had, that this game could quickly turn into a blowout, despite the fact that we had played so well at the beginning of the game. What happens after that? Rudy Ford interception, Christian Watson touchdown, Rudy Ford interception, Aaron Jones touchdown. 4 straight drives were absolutely perfect from the Packers' perspective. So now we're ahead 14-7. There's a minute 42 left in the first half. It looks like it's going to be all good, and our defense decided to go soft, allow a Dallas touchdown. So it's 14-14 at halftime. And, frankly, this Jekyll and Hyde component was really the way it went as far as the overall game was concerned, right? So second half, we get down to Dallas's 42. Again, we have to punt deep in or significantly into Dallas's territory, but we stop them on a 3 and out. And then Dallas punts after the 3 and out. And then Amari Rodgers fumbles in the most asshat of all asshat possible moves, gives Dallas all of the momentum. I mean, how can that happen in that situation? After that, Dallas touchdown, Green Bay 3 and out, Dallas touchdown. So now we go from having a tie game or even a lead at the end of the first half into being down 2 scores. And in our text thread, it was, I would say, pretty dreadful reading, looking back at where all of us were mentally when we went down 2 touchdowns with less than 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. And what happens for the Packers? Green Bay touchdown, Dallas punt, Green Bay touchdown, 28-28 game. There were some other things that were going on as far as, things at the end of the game and in overtime, but fundamentally, as far as our defense was concerned, we stopped Dallas on their last 4 drives. Yep. Dallas had 6 total drives of 3 plays. There are a lot of things that didn't go perfectly. We'll talk about some of those, but you look at those elements and it's like it's just beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful to beat Mike McCarthy. It's always beautiful to beat Dallas. And they did just enough, and they had enough momentum in those certain bursts of activity, because it was essentially 4 games and we ended up with the right team at the end of the game.
So Dallas, as a franchise, when leading by at least 14 points in the fourth quarter, was 195-0. They had never, ever given up a 2-touchdown lead in the fourth quarter in the history of the franchise. They are now 195-1.
Inject that right into my veins. Just inject it right into my veins.
There's only one statistic, as we know, there's only one statistic that matters, and that's the final score. 31-28. We put the number in the win column, but Neil, read through those beautiful statistics from the game that I know you've put together for us.
Aaron Rodgers, 14 of 20, 224 yards, 11.2 yards per attempt.
What was his rating on that game? It was
146 point something. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Aaron Jones, 24 rushes, 138 yards.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
AJ Dillon, 13 rushes, 65 yards.
All right.
That's 207 yards rushing total as far as the Packers are concerned.
7 yards rushing.
Very good.
Christian Watson, 4 receptions, 107 yards, 3 touchdowns.
And a backflip.
Alan Lazard with only 3 receptions for 45 yards, but that 1 reception in overtime was key to us winning the game.
All it takes is one good one, Neil.
All it takes is one good one. Overall, the Packers had 415 total yards of offense and 35-55 total time of possession.
Wow. Defense, 2 interceptions from Rudy Ford.
Defense, 2 interceptions and 2 sacks. So we had plays that worked really well on defense. I'll give 2 other statistics that are really amazing. On second downs, we averaged 8.7 yards per play on second down and 7.5 yards per play on third down. And that takes into account all the times we failed on second and third down. So unbelievable. And since I know that you like statistics like that, since you like statistics like this,
give it to me. Give it to me.
The Packers faced an 8-man box 18 times, and they averaged 5.3 yards per play facing an 8-man box.
Nice. They pounded that box.
There was a lot of pleasure to be had from that game.
Indeed.
It was a great day in Green Bay as well. And one of the things that I pointed out during the tailgating is there was an awful lot of blue coming through the tailgating. And from friends of mine that were in the stadium, they said, it was pretty noticeable how much Dallas showed up. The fans showed up. Was it prevalent watching it on television as well? I only listened to the radio broadcast.
No, not really. It sounded like a Packers crowd, maybe not the absolute most boisterous for the low parts of the game, but it sounded like a pretty solid Packers crowd that was pretty happy.
Yeah, there was because of the Vikings overtime game. I would listen to a little bit of Sirius XM, the Packers feed right before the game started, and Kuhn was talking about, he was just he was like, this atmosphere is electric. Everybody's excited. The crowd's really into it. There was a lot of excitement. I think it was nice for the Packers to acknowledge the McCarthy and a number of the former Packer coaches that were back at Lambeau. So that was classy. But he was saying that there's just a buzz. I mean, did you feel that there, John? I mean, it just.
I really did. I mean, there was outside the stadium, lots of people. Like I said, there are lots of people like we usually have, but a lot of blue. But just something about like a calm in the air. It was kind of breezy when we started, but everything kind of just got still. The sun came out for a bit, but it was just a neat day. And I think that people felt really good as they're milling about. I know that we helped them feel good for as much as we could with our libations. But it was, outside the stadium, I would say it was one of those things where it was kind of an unstated or a muted hopefulness. Let's win this one because we just don't want Dallas fans to win in this stadium.
And yet, for much of the game, we were all pretty depressed. I mean, the text message receipts are all there, right? It's time for the Jordan Love experiment to begin. And there's no way that we're coming back from 2 scores down. I mean, and I don't think we were unique among Packers fans as far as how it felt that we had the opportunity and had given it away, not just once, but multiple times. And thankfully, Lambeau Magic showed up and we had Lambeau Magic for a great game in Lambeau Field.
Oh, I was just saying it was different. There was something, the prior losses, pretty much all of them, even some of the wins, they barely were able to overcome all the screw ups, the asshats, whatever. They overcame that yesterday. It felt like, with the one exception being at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, when they kind of, okay, they're going to, let's drive this down. It was tied. All they need is a field goal, right? They need to go an extra 20, 30 yards. That was pretty awful. And then I was like, because then when Dallas got the ball, I'm like, oh Christ, are they going to ever get the ball back? Right? Are they going to lose, never get the ball back, a la Seattle, or, pick another overtime loss where they never get the ball? So none of those things happened, which was good. But like I said, they seemed to find a way to win yesterday, not a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And it was different. And like I said, I don't know what specifically it was. I mean, the statistics, yes, there was, Packers were 1 for 1 on 4th down. Yay. Unlike the prior
pretty
weeks.
Huge 4th down there too, right?
Yes.
That was absolutely
Dallas,
gorgeous.
Yeah. But Dallas was 2 for 3 on 4th downs, but they were only 5 of 15 on 3rd downs. So, okay. And they had way more plays they had 18 more plays than we did.
And they had a couple more yards than we did too.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say, well, our offense got 415, Dallas got 421. So it's not like our defense was consistently incredible, but they had their moments. It was the Jekyll and Hyde was the theme of that game. We had a lot of drives that our defense was awesome. And then a couple where it was not so much. And I mean, we were all talking about how bad tackling was on so many of those plays. I mean, our tackling was atrocious for significant stretches of the game, but it occurred.
But then it wasn't
appropriately when it needed to be, right? I mean, and that's the amazing thing. I just don't know exactly how they were turning it on and off. And I think it's just, more a matter that they're not a great team. And so consistency is going to be an issue, or they're just trying to figure out how to generate consistency. But the fact that they had all of these moments says that this is a team that does have actual potential, because when they're playing well, they were playing really well yesterday.
Packers had 18 fewer plays, but they won time of possession and they had almost as many yards. So, I mean, there were some big plays, obviously, but then there was also the sustaining, and obviously with the running game. We've talked about this for many, many, many weeks. And the games where we've been the most competitive is when the running game has really, really worked.
Well, just looking at it from the Aaron Rodgers perspective, in the first quarter, Aaron Rodgers was 2 of 4 for 12 yards. In the second quarter, he was 2 of 2, thankfully for 61 yards. He had that one really good throw, but through 2:47 left in the third. So through almost 3 quarters of football, Aaron Rodgers, who's only 6 of 10 for 107 yards, 6 of 10 through almost 3 quarters of football.
And one of those plays was 58 yards. So
that's right.
Yeah.
And I think the other amazing thing is that all 4 incompletions in that 6 of 10 were to Christian Watson, which is our key redemption story of the week, is that somebody who really had a number of bad plays early, including a drop on a 3rd down that could have, on the first drive, gotten us to the point of having an easier field goal or even moved us towards touchdown. That redemption story was incredible. I mean, he clearly showcased his talent in the game. That's that hat trick is amazing, just to see a player make a leap like that. And he's a rookie and it's not going to be consistent as far as that's concerned. But I was getting to the point of thinking, well, what happens when somebody scores 4 goals in a game? I don't even know what the number is for. I know, you've got a brace for 2, you got a hat trick for 3. And I was thinking, well, he could absolutely get a 4th touchdown in overtime. And, that was an incredible feeling in the game.
The other thing to look at is this is another game-winning drive in the 4th quarter overtime for Aaron Rodgers for his career. Regardless of how the season plays out, it's a signature win. It's certainly a turning point for the team in the season, who now goes to 4-6 on the season. And as we said, we've got the short week with the Tennessee Titans coming in. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Neil, we were going to pay homage, to the Dallas Cowboys and their fans by watching their last Super Bowl victory. But it turns out none of us have a VCR, so we were kind of skunked on that. But Neil, we have that chant. Remember the chant we created? You haven't won since VHS. Come on, do it for us, Neil.
You haven't won since VHS. You haven't won since VHS. You just have old cassette tapes. You haven't won since VHS.
That's
Cowboys
right.
Suck.
If there's a need to bring soccer chants to the NFL, that's one of them right there, along with your Rock Me Canadale last week, yes, which was well received, it turns out,
including by Tony Canadeo's son and by his grandkids, which is one of these ultimate only in Green Bay kind of things, that we have a friend whose uncle is Tony Canadeo's son. You're not doing that in New York City or in Philadelphia.
Now, you mentioned the hat trick as well. Not to name names, Jeff, but there is someone who, in a text message thread that we had going on, asked within the last couple of weeks if it's time to declare Christian Watson a bust. And I would say that the answer that I gave at that time was no, and after last night was a resounding no.
That is I would have to agree with you there, John. I think we had one hell of a redemption game yesterday. Yes. Although, like I said, started out a little shaky, but my goodness, he found his stride. And I think just success begat success. Yep. And I was talking about this a little bit earlier. So the first touchdown catch over the shoulder, oh my God, that was spectacular. The second one was clutch. He was running away. It's the third one that was Devontae-esque, shall we say. He just smoked the defensive back off the line. All Rodgers had to do was just track him across. Nobody was going to catch this kid going across for that third touchdown. And it was a hands catch. It was a confident, I'm now arrived with that third touchdown catch. And that's, to me, I was like, holy shit, we're really seeing something here, because suddenly this kid that was, dropped the ball and concussed and had all these naggy injuries, he looked pretty good.
We talk about history. Sterling Sharp struggled as a rookie. Jordy Nelson struggled as a rookie. We know Devontae Adams struggled. They went through their drops. It is a growing process. They have to get there. But the big statistic in this is, in Packers franchise history, there are now 4 rookies with a hat trick or a 3 receiving touchdown in a single game. 2 of them are in the Hall of Fame, Max McGee and James Lofton. One of them should be in the Hall of Fame in Billy Houghton. Christian Watson is now the 4th. So if nothing else, that's some pretty darn good company to be associated with.
Yeah, but I like how it seemed, and I don't know what's going on behind the scenes with Rodgers and even LaFleur when Watson is dropping these balls. I read something yesterday where they both approached him after the first couple drops, and they said, okay, we're going back to you. Yeah. So I don't know if it was because they didn't really have a lot of other choice or if it was like, okay, kid, don't fuck it up, but here you go. take we're giving you the chance to shine. And he took it, and I'm so on a number of levels. I'm really, really happy for him because he really seemed to enjoy it. Obviously, the fans were going ape shit, right? I mean, this is not something you see every day. And so it was redeeming. And it was like, okay, this is encouraging. I'd still like to see him not drop the ball as much. But I tell you what, he sure made it exciting catching those touchdowns.
Well, let's hope there's some number 9 jerseys going off the shelves this week as well. Jeff, we will give you some credit. You went the reverse psychology route last week. You tried to break the jinx here. You totally body slammed this team and said that there was no way they were going to win. You want to do the same thing for Tennessee while we're thinking of it?
Absolutely.
Derrick Henry's just going to run all over that fucking field, isn't he?
He's got 300 yards.
I'm a little bit concerned about that one. So I have 2 other things I'd like to note as far as the game is concerned. So I talked about Aaron Rodgers to that point where we were down 28-14. The rest of the game, Aaron Rodgers, 8 of 10 for 117 yards. And then secondarily, the Dallas defense was the number 1 defense in the NFL in sack percentage and pressure percentage. Aaron Rodgers was sacked twice. And yes, those were big plays, but Aaron Rodgers was sacked twice. Aaron Rodgers broadly had time to throw the ball on those times when he was throwing it. So our offensive line did the things that it needed to do, obviously rushing, but also in the pass against their strength. We did it against their strength. And Aaron Rodgers had a superb last quarter and a half.
And it looks like there really weren't that many injuries either. I mean, it looked like a mass unit on who wasn't playing, right? I mean, a couple guys going IR, that whole debacle against Detroit. But it really seemed like a game that was pretty cleanly played. I mean, at least in terms of no significant injuries, at least that I'm aware of. And, we beat McCarthy. And like you said, that picture, I just glanced at that again. I'm like, he took a chance. He, post-game interviews, McCarthy's like, you know what? We were right on the edge of field goal range. They would have been kicking into the wind. So he's like, you know what? We're going to go for it. We should have been able to execute. We didn't. There you go.
So the win gives Green Bay a 4-6 record on the season. Dallas moves to 6-3. And we want to just take a quick peek at how we expected this season to go. Now, at least I did. I had Green Bay with a 12-5 record. We know they can't do that because of the 6 losses. But with Dallas, I actually had them sitting at an 8-9 record on the season. And the way they started out, it looked like that was feasible. They started playing well. But now with the 6-3 record, that could already come back to them. But some teams that are probably playing at or over expectations, the Monday night team right now, the Philadelphia Eagles, opening up to an 8-0 record. And I picked them to go with 11 wins on the season. But those darn Minnesota Vikings, Jeff, a team that I had down with a 7-10 record on the season, they're now 8-1. And you talked about that Bills game yesterday. Boy, how just bonkers is it? How intolerable is Minneapolis these days?
Folks are excited. But it's also guarded because they're basically like, okay, when is the other shoe going to drop, right? Because the Vikings are winning all of these really, really close games. I mean, they've been behind double digits in the second half of a number of the games, and they're the comeback kids. It would help if if they could cover Mr. Jefferson, for example. He had I think 193 yards yesterday. But whereas last year they were awful in close games and 1-score games, this year they've won them all. The only turkey game that they had was actually against Dallas, and when they got blown out, basically. So they're 8-1. They're good right now. Like I said, people are optimistic, but they're running away with the division. I mean, nobody's going to get unless they absolutely collapse. The other thing is they've had very few injuries as well. So, which, and just watching yesterday, even all the calls that were going against them, all the ball was bouncing their way. This just seems to be their year. Everything was going right for them. I mean, they were down big, and it was like, okay, they're in Buffalo, having just been there a couple weeks ago, it's not an easy place to play. And guess what? They just kept coming back. And Kirk Cousins was not Kirk Cousins, at least of lore. So I don't know. Like I said, people are excited. They're going to probably win the division going away. So what happens in the playoffs? That's going to be the key.
But overconfident Vikings fans are the best Vikings fans, right? I mean, this is exactly what you want, is for them to just be absolutely certain that their team is winning the Super Bowl, because you know it's not going to happen.
Well, and they do have to travel to Lambeau yet. So that's
right
going to
in
be
January.
a big game. Yes.
January games come up.
So as far as Buffalo is concerned, though, I mean, when the Packers played Buffalo, right, the Bills only had 3 points in the second half, and the Bills basically did the same thing against Minnesota. Is there concern that the Bills might not be the juggernaut that we all think that they are?
I don't know. I mean, they certainly get the bed shitter of the week for starters. I mean, let's just get that right out of the way. But Josh Allen, boy, when he's good, he's really good. And when he's not so good. I mean, it's really bad interceptions. Both of them in the end zone, both of them costing him points, obviously. And I don't know. He's really something special, because he basically in overtime, he kept running the ball at 20 yards a clip. I mean, it was amazing to watch. He's running over linebackers. He's out there. He's Favrean, if you will.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Unfortunately, with some of the same Favrean things, right? Oh my God, I can't believe you threw that, to triple coverage or whatever. That seems to be happening a little bit more this season with Josh Allen, and that's not good for the Bills.
And the fumble.
Yeah.
In near the end zone there. Neil, out on the East Coast, though, the two New York teams are certainly playing above expectations. The Jets right now, with a 6-3 record, I pegged them to only be 4-13 on the season. The Giants with a 7-2 record, where I thought they would be 5-12. Now, what the hell do I know? Obviously, because they're both teams beat Green Bay and are far exceeding expectations on the field.
On the other hand, we've watched the Giants and Jets play when they played the Packers, and they did not have the same feel. Dallas was clearly a better team than Washington, than the Jets and the Giants. I mean, that's why we feel that it wouldn't have been a shock if we had lost to Dallas, and it was a shock losing to those three teams. And I still think, having seen those teams, yes, they are better than expectations, but none of those looks to be a team that is actually a great team. And, the Philadelphia is obviously the team that really has been a surprise. At any rate, John, I do note that I did pick Philadelphia to win the East, but I didn't expect them to be anywhere near as good as they have been. They've been a real revelation, and we need to get into the situation where right now we are one game out of the 7th wild card, which are the 7th position in the playoffs. And we need to start making our wins add up. But at the same time, we need some of those other teams to keep losing at about the 50% clip they've been losing at. And if they stay at their record the rest of the way, I think we've got a pretty good chance. But obviously, we've got to fulfill our end of the bargain as well.
Well, then you look at the NFC West, and you have to wonder what's going on over there. So I had expected Arizona and Los Angeles to make the playoffs, and they're at the bottom of their division right now at 3-6 and 4-6. Seattle leading that NFC West right now at 6-4. Again, more wins than I think we expected them to have in kind of a transition or a rebuilding year for Seattle.
I mean, how does anyone expect Geno Smith, based on his history, to be leading Seattle the way that he is leading Seattle? That is a case where this is why the NFL is the most popular sport, is because things like this happen every year. You take the teams that make the playoffs, and a third of them are not going to make the playoffs the following year. A third of them are going to be completely new teams, and many times teams that are completely unexpected.
I mean, look at the Rams. Holy cows, right? I mean, just not the team. And fortunately, we get to play them in December.
Hopefully they haven't figured things out by that point, but
well, I hope not. But again, it's outdoors in December at Lambeau. So I'm hoping that, that will play to our advantage. But yeah, Arizona, San Francisco, that's a weird team also. I mean, again, they're good, but how good are they?
Well, as long as we don't have to play San Francisco, that's all I care about, because I do not have confidence in that team overall unless they're playing the Packers.
And speaking of San Francisco, they beat the Chargers. I almost called them
Mhm.
San Diego, Neil. You want to call them the Clippers.
The-
But
the- the-
but both Western divisions right now are just kind of other than Kansas City living up to expectations. But the Chargers now 5-4. They're not playing up to what they should be with their quarterback. But I don't think we expected Denver or the Raiders to do well, and they certainly aren't doing well right now either.
But I think that they're doing even worse than we expected, which is,
Right.
I mean, they're just bad. Those are both bad football teams, and that's helping Kansas City. I mean, I don't think Kansas City has been the juggernaut either, though, for that matter. I mean, the AFC to me is a lot more wide open than we expected to be. You sort of figured it was going to be
Yeah.
Kansas City against Buffalo, and I think there are a lot of teams that still have a possibility if they go on a run at the right time.
Well, look at the one team that I'm concerned about, especially going down there later on around Christmas, is Miami.
Yep.
I mean, what team's going to show up? I mean, they played some real terrible games, and then yet they played some brilliant games. So that's another one where they're super frisky. Who knows what's going to happen with them?
Well, at 7-3 right now, Miami is definitely dangerous and exceeding expectations for this
Yeah.
season as well. So we made our predictions, and we will stick to them. We're not going to make those changes, but we will revisit at the end of the season how well we did in taking a look at how the season shakes up. But now it's time to talk more about the Green Bay Packers, our next opponent. What kind of connection do we have between this Tennessee/Houston team? Well, we'll have Neil tell us all about it with his Packer player of the past.
This week's Packers player of the past is number 96, Sean Jones. We've got this photograph here of the 4 linemen from those 96 Packers teams: Sean Jones, Santana Dotson, Gilbert Brown, and Reggie White. Interestingly, 3 of the 4 of those have December 19th as their birthday. So a
Wow.
good day as far as Packers linemen is concerned. So Sean Jones, born Dwight Andre Sean O'Neill Jones, in Jamaica in 1962. So Sean moved to New Jersey at age 7 and played at a private school in New Jersey and was not recruited at all coming out of high school. So Sean Jones was a very motivated person. He had parents who were extremely hard workers and motivated throughout their life. And so he decided he was going to go into business. So he played football at the 1AA school of Northeastern. And he specifically went there for marketing without a football scholarship. He distinguished himself during his time at Northeastern. He started out at the offensive line, but his last 2 years, he switched to the defensive line. In the 1984 draft, the Los Angeles Raiders shocked the NFL by picking Sean Jones with a 2nd-round pick. That 2nd-round pick was made based on the recommendation of their scout, Ron Wolf, who loved the potential that Sean Jones had. So played for the Raiders for 4 years. He had 15 and a half sacks in one of those seasons, but he was also vocal as far as the strike was concerned in 87. At the end of the season, Al Davis traded him to the Houston Oilers. Now, Al Davis got the 9th overall pick from the Houston Oilers. So Sean Jones had clearly overachieved as far as his draft was concerned. And so Sean Jones played for the Oilers, the Houston Oilers, from 1988 through 1993. He was double-digit sacks for half of those years. He was all-pro during that time. But during his time with the Oilers, which coincided, by the way, during the time that I lived in Houston, the Oilers were known as a team that was always going to choke in the playoffs. So Sean Jones made the playoffs all 6 years. He was with the Houston Oilers, and they lost early in all 6 of those years. The most infamous of those being the game against the Buffalo Bills, where the Oilers were up 35-3 in the 3rd quarter and lost 41-38 in overtime to Frank Reich. So after the 1993 season, the Houston Oilers were ready to rebuild. They were not going to re-sign their star defensive lineman. And so the Packers had an opening, and specifically they had signed Reggie White the year before. And Sean Jones specifically wanted to go to a team that had the potential to win a Super Bowl. Having Reggie White was there, he was clearly convinced by Brett Favre. And obviously he had the connection with Ron Wolf. And so Ron Wolf convinced Sean Jones to come to the Packers with a 3-year, $7.8 million year deal as a free agent in 94. So he played for the Packers for 3 years, 94, 95, and 96. I will note when he signed for the Packers, he was 32 years old. So he was somebody who was at the back end of his career, but during his time with the Packers, he had 10 and a half sacks in 94, 9 sacks in 95, 5 sacks and 3 forced fumbles in 96. He was 2nd team All-Pro 2 of his 3 years. and he was incredibly durable. So we remember Reggie White and Sean Jones as the bookends of that line. If Reggie White doesn't get him, Sean Jones is going to get him alternatively. And he was incredibly durable in that role. Of the 56 possible games he could have played for the Packers, he played in 55 of them.
Wow.
And, 28 and a half sacks total, including 4 in the playoffs. His final game was Super Bowl 31. He won Super Bowl 31 and said, "This is it. I'm leaving out on top." Perfect ending as far as a career is concerned. He ended his career with 113 total career sacks as a member of the 100 sack club. That's currently 23rd all time since sacks have been an official statistic. And as I said, 28 and a half sacks for the Packers. And I will note specifically, you look at that defensive line, and we have extremely happy thoughts about that defensive line. During Sean Jones's 3 years in Green Bay, the Packers defense, as far as points against, was 5th, 4th, and 1st. Top 5 defense 3 years in a row during the time that it was bookended by Sean Jones and Reggie White. So somebody who obviously was a central role as far as our defense, always in the shadow of Reggie White, because how can you not be in the shadow of Reggie White? But by the same token, Sean Jones made that decision. He could have been a number 1 defensive end anywhere. He wanted to go for the ring. He did that with the Green Bay Packers, and we're forever grateful for him for doing that.
Well, like you said, Neil, I think the one thing that I'll be eternally grateful for with Sean Jones' presence in Green Bay is the Super Bowl 31 win and the connection there. The Houston Oilers briefly were the Tennessee Oilers for 2 years, playing their games in Memphis, and then became the Tennessee Titans playing in Nashville. Well, those Tennessee Titans are coming to Green Bay this week. As we noted, it is a short week. It feels a lot better, though. I really expected, with a big day yesterday, and then just going right to work, and now trying to plan, okay, how am I going to leave work early Thursday, get to the game, then work on Friday? How exhausted am I going to be this week? And the win yesterday certainly was invigorating. And I really hope that this Packer team, as you talked about Aaron Rodgers, there was the spring in the step. Something was different. He looked better. They put almost 4 quarters together, right, Jeff?
Yep.
I would like to see that carry over into Thursday night, however they do that through practices over the next 2 days.
Well, and they're really good in prime time. I mean, the Packers and Aaron Rodgers are really good in prime time. So hopefully that will carry over as well. They've got that in their favor.
So as far as the Titans are concerned, though, right, they're a team that's 6-3. And so on paper, this looks like a really scary game. Now, I had stated in my preseason predictions that I did not have a lot of faith in Tennessee, and I retain that opinion about Tennessee. I think that their 6-3 record is somewhat of an illusion. I think there's clearly a good team, but this is a team that absolutely has flaws, and it's a team that we can exploit those flaws. Starting out with, it's a short week on a Thursday night. The home team has an enormous advantage for a short week Thursday night game. But if you look at the statistics such as DVOA, overall DVOA, the Packers are 14th, the Titans are 13th, basically the same team. The overall offense DVOA, the Packers are 9th, the Titans are 21st. The defense, Packers are 17th, Titans are 9th. And so essentially the Titans are good at defense. The Packers are somewhat better on offense. The only DVOA difference is special teams. The Assets are still 30th. The Titans are 12th, but fundamentally, the only thing that really is a major concern as far as the game is Derrick Henry and the Titans running game. Derrick Henry in 9 games has 923 yards rushing at 4.6 yards per carry. That has been a weak spot for us this year, and that is a potential problem. On the other hand, Tennessee's defense, while being second against the rush, is 31st against the pass this year. And so whether the game plan of going rush first and then pass is going to be the one to work with this year, or this upcoming Thursday, is, I would say, a very much open question. But going back and looking at Tennessee's offense, their offense is, as I said, overall ranked 21st. Their rushing offense is 9th. Obviously, having Derrick Henry makes a big difference. Their passing offense behind Ryan Tannehill is 31st in the league in yards per game at only 148 yards per game. Now, we have lost to teams that have had that profile so far this year, but I think that we are a better team now than we were earlier in the year. And I think that game in Dallas is going to be a huge boost as far as the team is concerned. And again, Tennessee playing on a Thursday night without having a bye beforehand on a
Cold.
short week where it's cold. These are
It's
all
gonna be
things
cold
that play
Thursday
into
night,
our favor.
yes.
And yes, and I am looking forward to that cold game. I guess we haven't mentioned I will be in Green Bay
That's
for
right.
the Packers-Titans game. I will
Mhm.
be heading over to Green Bay, arriving sometime mid-afternoon, and I will be in Lambeau Field. Position currently undetermined because it is a Milwaukee crowd, John. And so you need to do your Milwaukee crowd magic once again to make
Talk it up.
sure that they fully show up.
We will get to them in a moment. Neil, I really would be excited to see a good old fashioned run first game for both teams. That word that we learned in high school, slobber knocking. I think I would like to see some slobber knocking going on Thursday night, both ways. In a cold night, to get that crisp plastic on plastic sound. A lot of, I think it's going to be a good grinding game on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of grinding and sort of continuing on the statistical element. So Tennessee is terrible as a passing offense. The Packers offense is now up to third in the NFL in passing yards allowed per game, third in the NFL in passing yards, but we're 26th in rushing. And again, partly is that the opponents and what our opponents have focused on, but I think we played enough games total to know that there is more to it than just the randomness of the teams that we face. There is something, we've watched the games, right? We know that if a team can grind the ball against us, that's going to be a problem. And that's the matchup that does not work as far as we're concerned. We got our own matchup that works out well against them too.
Well, what that matchup hasn't worked is because we haven't been able to pass the ball. Now, if based on Christian Watson's coming out party yesterday, if the fact that there's a little Rodgers magic still left in the hat, then maybe, like you said just a few minutes ago, do we look at run first or do we try to throw the ball downfield? I mean, if Tennessee's pass defense is that crappy, which it seems like they are. Now, we've played some other crappy pass defenses, Detroit, where that didn't go so well. So, but like I said, maybe, this isn't 2 weeks ago. Things change. It's a short week, that maybe they kind of try and exploit that.
Neil, have you decided what jersey you're going to wear Thursday night?
I have not. I've got to obviously make a decision within the next day and a half, but you have a suggestion, John? Do I go with like an Atari Bigby or something like that?
I was going to ask if you had a Reggie White.
I don't. I sadly do not have a Reggie White. I don't have a Charles Woodson, and those are excellent opportunities if somebody wants to get me a Christmas gift. But no, I am missing those types of jerseys.
Yeah, and you don't have a Sean Jones either.
I don't. Although I'd really like a Gilbert Brown one within that line. So,
okay.
Well, if you get into town early enough on Thursday, you can go get your own homemade jersey. I'm sure you'll pick a good one for Thursday night. With that said, we want to talk about our Packer history, and there is a lot of connections, I think, between the Green Bay franchise and the Houston/Tennessee franchise with players, coaches, and things like that. But Jeff's going to talk about a different cat to wear jersey number 12 with our little bedtime story, Jeff.
So this is, in doing this research, I uncovered, I really was surprised. There's multi-facets here. So I'm going to take you back to 1974. The Packers are struggling. The glory days are over. They're desperate for a quarterback. So they talk to the Los Angeles Rams, who have one John Hadl. So the Packers say, okay, we're going to trade for this guy to revitalize or reinvigorate the franchise. The Packers traded John Hadl and gave the Rams a first, second, and third round draft choice in 1975 and a first and a second in 1976.
Jeff, that's the Lawrence Welk trade. You got to say it right. A
one
and
a two
and a 1, 2, 3. There you go.
So Hadl comes over. He starts 19 games for the Packers. He wins 7. So in 1975, because the Packers have traded away a lot of draft picks, they trade guard Bill Luck to Philadelphia. He was a high Packer draft choice, and he was a successful Packer. They traded him to the Philadelphia Eagles, and they receive a 4th round pick for the 1976 draft. Why is this important? Stay with me here. So as I said, Hadel only wins 7 games out of 19 starts. They're still desperate for a quarterback. So they kind of are looking around. Who can they trade for? Who is good? Or who do they think is good? One Clifford Lynn Dickey. So Mr. Dickey was drafted by the Houston Oilers in the 3rd round of the 1971 draft, number 56 overall. And in the same draft, Dan Pastorini was also picked by the Houston Oilers 3rd overall. So they picked 2 quarterbacks. So Dickey's in Pastorini's shadow. Lynn Dickey, not surprisingly, so he plays. So they're competing for the starting job. Dickey's playing in the 4th preseason game in 1972, and he is horribly injured. He missed most of the 1972 season. He dislocated and broke his hip. Okay, ouch. Now, so he loses, he has no chance for the starting job. So this draft choice, so Pastorini is kind of the guy in Houston. Well, for a couple of years go by, and Lynn Dickey does play. So his career stats in Houston over 5 years, he had 155 completions on 294 attempts, 1,953 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 28 interceptions. Okay, so we've established this. And so the Packers decide, okay, Lynn Dickey's our guy. So based on all that,
a 28-8 ratio of interceptions
yes,
to touchdowns, and that's our guy. Okay.
Yes, indeed. So the Packers decide to trade for Lynn Dickey in early 1976. So who do the Packers trade? John Hadel. So he goes from the Rams to the Packers, now to the Houston Oilers. Cornerback Ken Ellis, a 4th round pick in 1976, acquired from that Philadelphia trade, and a 3rd round pick in 1977. So what happens next? So I'm like, okay, so we'll talk about Lynn Dickey in a player of the past, another. So a lot of us grew up watching Lynn Dickey. No, he had the horrific leg injury. He missed almost 2 years in Green Bay. But then I said to myself, so what did Houston do with those draft picks that came from the Packers? So the 3rd round pick in 1977, they picked a running back by the name of Tim Wilson, 66th overall. He played 6 years for Houston, nothing special. He was no Earl Campbell, let's put it that way. So interesting about the 4th round pick in 1976. Houston uses that pick on a guy by the name of Steve Largent. Maybe you've heard of him. So they pick Steve Largent in the 4th round in the 1976 draft. So Steve Largent plays the preseason. Houston isn't impressed with Mr. Largent's talents. So they were going to cut him. They did not cut him. They traded him to Seattle for an 8th round pick.
Wow.
So Mr. Largent played 14 seasons in Seattle and an illustrious Hall of Fame career. So if you look up bad trades, that's on, I never knew this, right? But yeah, Steve Largent was picked in the 4th round by the Houston Oilers in 1976, played 4 preseason games. They were going to cut him. They traded him to Seattle.
Which is a pick that was Green Bay's pick. So in theory, Steve
actually,
Largent
it was Philadelphia's pick.
Oh, that's right.
So this was the pick. It was Philly's pick. Then it was Green Bay's pick. So I just thought that was kind of fun. So yeah, so the Houston Oilers in the 70s, yes, they drafted the Hall of Famer Steve Largent and traded him for an 8th round pick before he even played a regular season game in Houston.
So we talk about giving up on Amari Rodgers and the Amari Rodgers experiment. That's giving up way earlier on a player that was clearly much more talented.
Yep.
And we didn't even talk about that for Thursday night. The team is not committing to not putting Amari Rodgers out there to return punts on Thursday night because it's a short week. And it's like, I don't understand that concept. It's a short week, so we don't want to make a change, but you made a change on short notice in the third quarter
in the game.
Put Keshawn Nixon out there and let him return the damn ball.
I don't care if he's catching it like this. I still feel
yes,
more
that was frightening. Though. What do you
Amari Rodgers?
Above his head? That was woo boy. That was like I like my punt. I'm glad they changed the punt returners, but maybe catch it in front of you, not over your head. That was a little frightening.
Well, with that, we do have a lot to look forward to on Thursday night. One of those things is that this is the second of the gold package games for the Packers this season. So that means that this Thursday night's game is the Milwaukee crowd, the dreaded Milwaukee crowd that I harped on earlier in the season, and I had to take it back because for the New England game, they showed up. But that was a Sunday game with a 3:25 kickoff. It gave them a lot of time on a Sunday to get to Green Bay and get in. Thursday is going to be different. It's a 7:15 kickoff. The parking lots open at 3:15. Now you can get there earlier. You can park on the street. You can park in the private lots, the people selling their yards and things like that. But the crowd coming from Milwaukee combined with, yes, our usual afternoon workday traffic. I know how much you guys love me talking about traffic in Green Bay. So Highway 41.
Excuse me.
Highway 41.
Gesundheit, Neil. Gesundheit.
Yes. Highway 41 will be a nightmare on Thursday. So if you are going to Green Bay, get there early. It will become a parking lot at about 5 p.m.
And it'll be done by about 5:20 p.m.
No, it'll last till 6:30. It's going to be horrible. If you live in the area and you know the back roads, take the back roads. Neil, fortunately, you'll have gotten to Green Bay by that time. You'll have a nice, easy trek across town. But our hope, though, is that our Milwaukee friends aren't working until 4:30, 5 o'clock, and then deciding to go to Green Bay, because in that case, they'll be getting into the stadium at about 7:15 as the ball is being kicked off. So Thursday night could be kind of crazy in the sense that we don't know what our fan base is going to be like getting in. So I'm imploring the Milwaukee fans again, get there early, get your taste of the tailgating. We will be there tailgating. We will be out. Lot 1, again, is closed. We've been moved over to Lot 9. We're in the south side of the stadium in the grass lots. You look for the flags, the smiley face flag, the Lot 9 flag. I always point out the Canadian flag with the Packer helmet on it because that's the one that grabs my eye. And we'll also be out there on our social media. So Green Bay Chat, all lowercase, all one word. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. We're going to be putting out information. I'll put out some pictures like I did this past Sunday. And Neil, hopefully you're going to be in some of those pictures with me.
This is going to be my first time going to Lot 9. I'm excited. If had all the hype of Lot 9, my first time experiencing it. So
your parents have been there, Neil. You need to be there as well.
Yeah, and I'll do the shot scan like my parents as well. So,
right.
Any rate, yeah, it's going to be fun. And I think that we look at the Packers, and this game against Dallas was obviously a huge boost, even though we are only 4-6. And I think about how things could have been different. So let's pretend that we had beaten Detroit and lost to Dallas. I'm willing to bet that we're in a much worse position mentally at 4-6 than losing to Detroit and then beating Dallas. So
absolutely.
It's beating Dallas is good, but this sounds like, and it feels like something different is going to happen. And, we don't know whether that's going to be the case because we know all of the flaws that this team has, but at least we've got hope. And yes, it's the hope that kills, but live on hope. That hope is awesome.
And it is a home game. I think that's huge too. If we had to go down to Nashville to play, boy, that would have made things that much worse. So 2 home games in a row, and then like a little mini bye, right? So then, they've got 10 days till the next game. So hopefully they'll come out. They will, I could rant and, hope that they're going to get their ass handed to them again. I'm cautiously optimistic again. I hope I'm not wrong. We'll see. I'm excited. I enjoyed watching the game yesterday. It was fun to watch them win. There was a little magic that seemed back. I hope they can continue with it.
Then one other shout out to the opponents that we're playing. As we've already noted, they were the Houston Oilers. I lived in Houston for 4 years, and I love thinking about the team that had overly enthusiastic fans who were going to be crushed in a way that the Vikings fans often do. So love you, blue Houston Oilers, Houston Oilers. Let's see the Titans choke just like the Oilers.
Well, they are not the Houston Oilers anymore, but they are still blue. There was too much blue on Sunday when Dallas came to town. I do not want to see as much blue on Thursday night with the Titans coming to town. No idea what the Nashville crowd, what they travel like. But again, being the Milwaukee ticket package and being a Thursday night game, I got to believe that the secondary market probably was pretty loose on this one. I didn't even check it, but it seems like.
So I have, because I don't, my parents have green package games. And so I don't have a gold package. So my brother and I will be at the game. And so I've been looking at the secondary market very carefully. And yes, I will be able to get a sub face value ticket in a pretty good location.
Wow.
And one other thing to note, my daughter and her friends are going to the game, but they're traveling from Stevens Point, which is normally Stevens Point to Green Bay, just under 90 minutes. But unfortunately, they can't leave Stevens Point until 5 p.m. because of work schedules that day. And I've already told her, yes, Neil, the traffic is going to kill them trying to get to Lambeau Field. They're going to have a difficult time. If they get there at 7 p.m., I will be shocked.
But the back roads from Appleton, right? Just, send her down through Appleton and up 57. There's no traffic on. I mean, as long as you stay off the freeways, the traffic in Green Bay is not problematic on game day, other than right around the stadium. And
right,
you've lived in Green Bay, John. You live in Appleton.
I know the
give
ways
her
around,
advice,
but she doesn't. And so trying to draw her a map or get her a map on this one is going to be tricky. So hopefully it works out for them. And they have a safe drive up. Yes, I know, Jeff. I know how phones work. Hopefully they have a safe drive up, because
yes,
that Highway 41, because it is only 4 lanes, 2 in each direction in a stretch, especially from Appleton until you get to just south side of De Pere, it gets hairy because of that. Once it opens up to 3 lanes at De Pere, then it's a lot nicer. It's a lot easier, and traffic goes a lot faster at that point. But if you're coming from Milwaukee, you lose your 3rd lane just north of Oshkosh. So there's a stretch, even though it's an interstate, from Oshkosh to De Pere, where it is only 2 lanes in one direction, and it's tight.
Let's take advantage of Greenleaf and Wrightstown. There are plenty of back roads in Brown County. It is not that big a place. You can get into it. It's not like traffic in any real city. Sorry, John.
It's not like trying to get out of Orchard Park either. That's for sure. So once again, the social media, will be putting some stuff out there, Neil. Green Bay Chat, all one word. Find us Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Snapchat. We're also on Facebook at the GBC Podcast, Green Bay Chat. But any last words, gentlemen?
Taylor Swift concert tickets go on sale tomorrow. Good luck to everyone who is going to be involved as far as trying to get tickets.
Neil, I hope you have a safe trip to Green Bay. I hope you enjoy your time in Green Bay and bring the Packers a much-deserved back-to-back victory.
All right, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe, leave us a comment. If you're driving to Green Bay on Thursday, please drive carefully, and may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.